Welcome everyone, my name is Dallas McClain. I'm here at the Biohacking Congress in Austin this weekend. We have a lot of great speakers to learn from, scientists, leading people in the biohacking industry. We're so excited to be here, and be sure to check out the next Congress in Miami on the weekend of October 20th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Go to biohackingcongress.com to check out the tickets for that. Without further ado, I'm here with Kashif Khan from the DNA Company. We're going to talk about DNA and all the different things we can learn from it to help use it to become better people and biohack our way to better health. So let's start and jump right into it. Kashif, can you tell me a little bit about what this company stands for in terms of your mission and how it's been refined since the beginning?
Yes, we understood that there's some secret sauce in genetics, right? It's our instruction manual. It's the code that tells all of our cells what to do. But the outcome from most testing at the time we got going wasn't there. Like it was underwhelming.
Okay.
And so we started to mine, why is it that all these big problems we deal with, from cholesterol to diabetes to weight loss to hair loss to everything we deal with in health and wellness, we can't get the answers from the actual code that's programming it all. Mm-hmm. We can get answers for rare genetic conditions, for genealogy and ancestry, but I can't figure out why that guy recovers well at the gym and I don't. What's going on? So that's the research we did. We realized that it wasn't just about studying DNA in a petri dish scientifically. It was about meeting people clinically, understanding their epigenetic habits, what was their environment, their nutrition, their lifestyle. Those are the loads that, when applied on the genetics, equal the problem or the benefit, right? So we just took a very different approach to more functional thinking around the genome, and now we're in a place where we can actually solve all these problems. When somebody says, my mom had fibromyalgia, I don't want to go down that track, well, here's exactly why it would happen to you. So here's the choices you need to make, here's the habits you need to adopt. And we can do that with most problems now.
So it's more about defining who we are at a most individual level of the DNA inside our cells, and then using that to say, all right, this is what you're preconditioned to maybe experience based on what your DNA is telling us. Do these habits and everything to prevent this from happening.
Yeah. We're constantly making choices, right? So and we want to do the best. This is why we're here. Everyone at this Congress, it's like, what's the latest and greatest?
Right.
It's how do we remove the sort of trial and error and one size fits all. And that's the best you can do when you don't know any better. So listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video. Okay, that worked for that guy or gal. I'm going to try it.
Right.
Sometimes great, sometimes no. So when it didn't work, why? So that symptomatic thing that you're trying to fix, the brain fog, the pain, the weight loss issue, whatever, is the outcome 3, 4, 5 steps down the road of whatever that root system failure is. And it also has to, so let's take weight, for example. Caloric restriction training, that's what people do. Right? What if all that's happening is that your body doesn't detoxify properly? So the glutathione pathway, you could actually be missing genes there. It's not even about a variant or what version, like completely missing the gene. It's a unique variant called a copy number variation. Don't have the gene. And this is highly implicit in the glutathione pathway. What if you have that and you live in New York and you jog downtown every day and you're breathing in all this pollution and you're highly toxic, meaning that the toxins aren't leaving your body because you don't have the genetic tools to clear them. Your body will store fat to protect your organs, to put those toxins somewhere.
And the toxins are in the fat when they're stored. Yeah.
And so you're not eating and you're training and you can't lose the weight. That may be the thing that's wrong, right? So this individualization around what do I actually need to do? So we agree, here's the problem. I can't lose weight. Yes, that's a problem. The reason and why do you get stuck at this plateau is because you're solving the wrong problem. And I can tell you 20 different things that people don't realize they need to solve with that one problem. Right? So just individualizing, getting to my personal root, now I can really fix it.
Well, you're also taking away that excuse of people saying, like, I can't do it, I've tried and I'm doing this, and now you're saying, well, wait a second, we can define your particular case, and this is the problem right here. We can identify it at the deepest level, in a sense. Yeah. And that takes away the excuse, and it's like, now you know the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you know how to fix it. So I think that's phenomenal. That's great that you're doing that, because we live in a society now where, like, we love to make excuses. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah,
But,
we don't have everything's. We want it quick and fast, and just make it happen for me, right?
Right.
Even here, we're here biohacking. We're hacking. We're trying to get ahead and do things quick, right?
Right.
But do what's right for you, and a lot of that actually starts up here. So a big part of what we learn. So in our research model, we didn't do the conventional. Let's study genetics, and then hand that over to some clinician to use as a tool. We said in order to reach outcomes, we actually need to be the clinician. We actually need to sit in front of people and take all the science and work on them and then learn what's right and what's wrong. And instead of, hey, you got an 80% chance of Alzheimer's, why did 20% not get it? That's what we need to know with that exact genomic profile. They didn't get it because their habits were correct for that profile. So one big thing we learned in that research model of meeting people is how much mood and behavior, the way they think and perceive, affects all of these problems. So the thing you were saying about people wanting it quick or not trying or burning out or whatever, the perception of what you're supposed to do, your ability to actually do it, reward-seeking behavior, burnout, how do you handle stress, addictive tendencies, binging tendencies, all of these things, we're different, the way we think and the way we perceive. That, for us, is the first half of fixing anything. Right. Once you understand how you think and how you see and how people see you, now you can actually take the information and functionally use it, as opposed to burn yourself out, or as opposed to procrastinate, or as opposed to be over analytical and pick it apart and say this isn't going to work. Right. You need to understand how your brain works so it could be your superpower as opposed to your crutch.
I see. So it's like rewiring the brain to work more for you than against you, like power of intention and that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's both rewiring things that may be problematic, but also understanding how you think, so that when somebody says, hey, it's not that bad, maybe it isn't actually that bad. Right? Or when somebody says slow down, maybe you actually do need to slow down. Right? You may have highly reward-seeking behavior because you don't experience dopamine, the reward-seeking chemical or pleasure chemical, the same as most people around you. And so because you can't experience pleasure easily, or you can't experience reward easily, you pursue it and you chase it, right? And when someone says, here's your 10-week plan, you're like, I'm going to get that done in a week. Yeah, and you're also going to burn out quick. Right. So understanding even that one little nuance about yourself is the difference between actually getting those 10 weeks done or quitting halfway through.
Well said.
Yeah.
It's crazy because we live in that type of society where everything should be instant, like gratification and everything. So we want that physical change to be immediate, right? We want to have that six-pack immediately. But it's interesting because you're bringing up physical sides of like the DNA and what we can see under a microscope and everything in a person's DNA. And then you're also talking about the mental side, and maybe even goes into like coaching people on the spiritual side of how they have to look at these things and from a different perspective to help them get the most out of what they're seeing in their DNA.
For sure. Yeah, you have to take all tools, including the spiritual tools, and understand change is not a pill for an ill, right? Here's your thing, go away, you're done, right? That's what people want. But change takes work. And we've heard about the tiny habits and how you actually build behavioral change. Pick one small thing and fix it, right? And get that sense of reward. Dopamine fires, connects, and then you're like, wow, I feel good. And then you're going to do it again. And then you're going to do it again. You're going to do it again. So, and that's how you become a different version of yourself. You're a true identity shift from I'm trying to go to the gym to I work out. Like it's part of me. I do it. Right? I don't compromise there. That's not a flip of a switch. Right? That's weeks and weeks of behavior change, habit change. And what we're saying is when you genetically map the mind, you then understand how you get to that permanent behavior change. And it's not the same for all of us. Right? Yeah, so that's what we've done.
So talk to me a little bit about the studies and everything that you guys are doing with the research, because you mentioned that you're talking to these people clinically as well while you're also looking at their genome. But with all these different variables of these different people, how do you center it and and differentiate between like their lifestyle that are having impacts on their DNA and just what they were born with?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's a big one because that was the belief. Like genetics was, like I said, 80% chance of Alzheimer's. Here's your genetics. So good luck. Now go deal with that, right? Anxiety for the next 30 years. You gotta just wait and see what happens.
We're going to tell you bad news and you just take it and do what you want with it.
Because the belief is that it's innate. I have it. I inherited it. You need to ask the question, for those 80% of people, what's the actual biological trigger that causes cognitive decline and dementia? Not there's no magic Alzheimer's gene that just turns it on. There are genetic conditions where you do have it. It is innate. That's a tiny fraction of the problems we're dealing with. They're big problems, but they're 2% of healthcare, right? 90% is chronic disease, aging-related stuff, which we don't have to deal with.
Right.
So in all of that, okay, let's take Alzheimer's as an example since we're talking about that.
Sure.
It could be the same exact thing that we talked about for weight, which is if you don't detoxify airborne pollutants well, which we can determine genetically, your ability to have this first line of defense at your lungs and block them from entering your bloodstream, then once they're in the bloodstream, these sort of traffic cops, glutathione, going and finding all the nonsense and sending it to your liver and getting rid of it. How well do you do those jobs? There's genes that instruct those jobs. So we can determine how well you're doing. So one outcome could be weight gain. Another outcome could be dementia. So you don't have a dementia gene, right? What you have is a job that's not being done well, and if you also don't deal with amyloid plaque, for example, well, like you don't transport cholesterol well, then not only are you having that inflammatory insult causing inflammation, but we know here is where you're susceptible because you don't deal with the delivery of plaque well. So when you get inflammation here, or not plaque, sorry, I should say cholesterol, which leads to the plaque, right?
Okay, yeah.
So when you get neural inflammation, that's the body's response. It actually uses cholesterol as a hormone to reduce inflammation. That's why people get cholesterolemia. They don't have cholesterolemia, they have inflammation. And the body's using cholesterol to reduce the inflammation. Cholesterol meets toxicity and it oxidizes it, it hardens, and it doesn't move, it gets stuck there and deposits, and then you get that buildup, and eventually, oh, you have cholesterolemia, take this pill, right? The disease was actually inflammation. The disease here was actually inflammation. The disease for the weight gain was actually this toxic byproduct causing inflammation in your body trying to protect you.
But it all starts with the job not being done well.
It's all it is, yeah. So now, that's the step one. You don't need to know what your problem is. We need to know what the red flags are in your genome. Here's the job that my body just doesn't do well. Now we know, based on that, here's the potential problems you could have. Right? So here then are the right choices for you to first of all do that job better, right? Here's some supplements, here's the exposures you need to remove, right?
The biohacks essentially.
Exactly. Now you have the tools that you know you can dig into.
Right.
And here's the thing to also work on that risk of disease. So let's deal with the root, which is I don't detoxify well. A lot of stuff we could do in this place to deal with that, right? Let's also then look at the outcome, which is potentially dementia, potentially cholesterolemia, and also work on those things. And now you got this like sort of double front, battle going on, and you're tackling both things. And it shouldn't happen. It should that's how you go from that you got 80% to, well, why didn't 20% get it? We're also saying if you have an 80% chance of getting it, you have a 20% chance of not getting it. So let's be in that bucket. Right. And that requires having the right habits.
Of course.
Yeah.
So just a curiosity question then, for the 80% that are more inclined to have it, is it purely at a genomic level that the job is not being done well from birth? Or is it something a condition that they grew up in or something that could have affected that gene
so what we're saying is that you don't do the job well, or you have bad hardware. You have your arteries, we can genetically determine what the quality of your arteries are. Like this inner lining, the endothelium it's called, of the blood vessel, is it stainless steel and resilient, or is it paper thin?
Right.
Prone to inflammation. So now we know you have this bad hardware. The clinical answer is going to be you have an 80% chance of also some high number of cholesterolemia and heart disease.
Right.
The functional answer is if you have that, but you live on a beach and eat fish out of the sea and have no stress and sleep properly, you're not getting sick.
Right. Yeah.
You weren't born with cholesterolemia. You weren't born with heart disease. Why does it take until the age of 50, 55 before that stuff sets in? Because your body's resilient, it will fight.
Right.
But at a certain age, hormone levels drop, mitochondrial function drops, and you've been exposed to whatever the thing is for too long, right?
Yeah.
So now, what we're saying is, to your point, here's a genetic profile, there's elevated risk because you have bad hardware. If you do everything right, that's really the work now. We've now identified, here's the thing it's more about prioritizing. Let's prioritize this.
Right.
Because your genes aren't doing this well. Which means you need here's a supplement you need to take, here's the exposure you need to remove, here's the way you should exercise. For example, this person shouldn't be doing cardiovascular training regularly because that cardiovascular the output, which is oxidative stress, you get into oxidative stress from over-oxidation, will cause inflammation here. And you don't want that. This person should be doing resistance, weight training,
Right.
low intensity, right? Push your body, but don't breathe heavy. So now you can start to pick the habits that are best suited for this kind of red flag, and it shouldn't ever turn into a problem.
And did you identify the habits to do with certain categories and certain conditions that people seem to be prone to? Did you identify those connections based on clinical work, or was that just from already existing research?
That was the clinical work we did, which is
Okay.
here's all these genomes that are tied to problems, but why were they not certain? There was still probability, there was still some percentage, and some people didn't get it. If it's our genetics, it should be certain. This is my human instruction manual that tells my cells what to do. Why can't I get 100% answers? Because you also have to incorporate the epigenetics, which is environment, nutrition, and lifestyle. Without the right or wrong load, you don't have a good or bad outcome, right?
Makes sense.
So that's the work we did, is we spent 3 years with 7,000 patients, one by one, saying, here's your genome, what's going on? What do you eat? What medication are you on? How do you feel? What's your problem?
Right.
And then unpacking the good and the bad. And some things were obvious, some things are completely counterintuitive. Like I just said, cardiovascular exercise can cause cardiovascular disease in some people. Counterintuitive, doesn't make sense, but it's true for some people. So that's where we started to learn. And now our algorithm can give that back to you, because now we know, oh, your genes for hormones put you in this profile. For sleep, put you in this profile. For the keto diet, put you in this profile. So now I know what to tell you, right? Because we've learned from these 7,000 people that the profiles keep repeating themselves, and we don't really need to see any more people to learn more profiles. People fit in buckets now.
And beyond that, it's not just normal people. I imagine from the clinical on, like afterwards, you started working with people that are maybe they're perfectly healthy, but they're trying to increase their performance.
Yes.
Maybe like NFL players.
For sure, yeah. We work with a lot of pro athletes, celebrities even. You know, a pro athlete who, you know, one of their big problems that we don't think about because we don't live in their world is I can't focus on the game because all my friends are asking me for tickets and to lend them money for cars, and that's one of their major
We don't
problems.
think about that. You're right.
Yeah, it's a huge social problem where they land in a city and somebody says, "Hey, I heard you're in town. Get me tickets," right? And that's not one guy; it's like 100 guys. So imagine that constant pressure, and not that person not understanding their role and why they just can't do this for everybody. Right. So those types of things interrupt their game. So we have to understand how they perceive, how they think, and then teach them how to stay in that sort of clutch, high performance mode, right, and filter this stuff out. And it's not, some people genetically are much more likely to bind onto emotion, feeling, and trauma. So it's very hard for them to say no. It's very hard for them to not deal with the emotion that's coming to them from all these friends, etc. Right?
That makes sense.
So that's one. But then there's also the performance side. You know, I can tell you, being based in Toronto, we work with a lot of NHL hockey players.
Okay.
And there was this phenomenon that happened a few years ago where hormone replacement therapy has been around for a while, but all of a sudden all these trainers started saying, hey, your performance is bad, your testosterone levels are low, you're not recovering properly, let's give you some testosterone. It just all of a sudden became a fad, right?
Yeah.
And so what they did was they gave them these andro gel packs. So it's a pack you put on your stomach, it's an androgenized or testosterone gel, skin absorbs it. The thinking is, I gave you testosterone, your testosterone levels should go up. So we started getting calls from some of these trainers saying, we got a problem with this guy, he's feeling worse and we need to up his dose, right? And these guys are coming to us with literally man boobs, gynecomastia, libido's down, mood is off, they have beautiful hair and skin all of a sudden. And then we look at them genetically, and we're seeing that their genetic cascade is they convert all their testosterone into estrogen. So there's certain genes that map out the hormone cascade. So the more testosterone they were giving this guy, the more that equaled estrogen to the point where they got gynecomastia.
And had
Man
beautiful
boobs.
faces.
Yeah, and beautiful skin, right? And the answer, unfortunately, was he needs more. Right? Give him more. Because they didn't understand what the innate biology, what does the body do? Progesterone turns into testosterone, turns into estrogen. Men and women do the same thing. Women do it monthly, we do it daily. We have a menstrual cycle every day, right?
Yeah.
So some of these men thrived on that treatment. Some of them crashed and burned and couldn't even play anymore.
Right.
So that personalization of even that one thing, like you said, they're already at the top of their game and they were trying to get better and win. And so we had to personalize, and instead of giving them more testosterone, we had to give them supplements that blocked the conversion into estrogen. That was actually the problem. They made enough testosterone, they were just converting it all into estrogen. So that's just, and there's simple supplements that can do that. It just blocks that one gene, it's called CYP19A1, turn it off, and it stays as testosterone. That's all that needed to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just figured out that plug and chug, like,
Yeah.
like here's the break fix. Like,
Yep.
just
You're making enough, you're just converting it into something else. So you don't need more, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you said you also work with celebrities too. I guess I imagine a lot of the problem is the similar one you first mentioned with the professional players, like the media coming at them.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. A lot of mood and behavior. A lot of them trying to find the best person to help them, and landing in the wrong hands because they have the budget and they need it. It's their livelihood. Like, keep me young and healthy. And there's all these guys out there that have stuff that maybe isn't purposed properly or doesn't have meaning behind it, you know. And they get stuck in, like, I don't know what to do, and then they don't trust, and then things start to fail, so they go back to their old habits, right? So all we're saying is, here's your actual map, here's your genetic code. So now you know, for whatever the goal is, I need to lose weight, I need to do whatever, here's how you do that for you.
Okay.
Right? So that's a lot of the work we do with them. It is a lot of up here, it's a lot of hormones, it's a lot of diet, nutrition, you know, I'm a vegan, I'm a keto, what does your body do with that? There's one gene that determines how well you make the enzymes to break down chickpeas, lentils, legumes, beans. So there's a lot of celebrities where we have to tell them, for some people, great, but for you, you can't be a vegan. It's just not going to work unless you don't have any protein, and then you're going to melt away with no muscle, right? So that personalization, that's a big one for them, is diet, nutrition, and how do I stay fit and hack that.
So just a follow-up question on that specific side of it. So if a person can't eat a certain thing, or they can't do a certain thing because it's harmful for them specifically, is there any leadway where you can, like, slowly reintroduce things, like, to build up that response, or is it more just like complete elimination?
Yeah, there's kind of two dials you turn. One is, this is not good for me, so I need to eliminate it.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
The other dial is, I still want to do that thing, I can't eliminate it, so I need to supplement to be able to do it. And if we go back to the vegan example, you don't produce the enzymes for that type of food, okay, get rid of it, or go buy some enzymes
to digest it.
Right? So that you have to make a choice there, but then you have to be constant and consistent, because it will make you sick if you don't.
Right.
You know, for the person that's running downtown New York, gaining weight because of the toxins, you have two choices: stop, go in the gym indoors and don't do that, or you're taking detox up NAC, selenium, you know, alpha lipoic acid. You're taking the things that help you detoxify, so you can cope with that choice, right? And so those are really the two ways, or if ideally both, you know, you're working on both sides of it, get rid of things and also supplement for the jobs that your body doesn't do well. That's how you get to, like, as if you had the good version of the gene, right? As if you had the perfect habits, and you're kind of hacking your way through it.
I see.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about the activity side and what happens when you're going through this regimen of learning about your DNA. But what about the product itself? Like, can you take me through a basic outline of, like, what's presented to the users and how you figure out these different categories and everything?
So that's another thing that I thought was broken that we needed to fix. So genetic testing is still today a test and a report. Here's your list of genes. Here's the outcome. You have this version of this gene, this version of this gene, this version of this gene. You look at it and, like, what do I do with this? Right. I'm not a PhD genomicist. I have no clue what this means. And even the PhD genomicists talk to 5 different people and they'll tell you 5 different things, because they don't have functional training. They have genetic training. Here's what the gene means. How does that impact your body? What do you do about it? I was never taught that.
Right.
That's what a geneticist will say, right? So we realize the product need to be different, which is, as opposed to here's your genes, it's here's your problem. Anxiety, depression, weight loss, hair loss, the things that we actually deal with. And by the way, here's the genes that inform that, if you want to know the science, and here's the recommendations. That truly, what do we need? What's wrong and how do I fix it? Right? It should be that simple.
Wow.
And if I can't understand it, this tool doesn't work. So we've broken it down to speak to the problems as opposed to the genes. So to answer your question, saliva tube gets shipped to you. You spit the tube, it's 5 milliliters, a little bit of saliva. It goes back to our lab. We extract the DNA from the saliva. We sequence it, which just means looking for the exact variants that we think are important. That then populates our algorithm, which is unique to the way we think. And then you log into this portal and you start to read these reports. And these reports talk about the things we said: anxiety, burnout, procrastination, hormones and estrogen toxicity, which is so important for women, cardiovascular health, all of this stuff we're talking about. And from there, you can take the recommendations, or you may say, my mom had breast cancer and I don't want it. Right? And that's where we have clinicians that can work with people on programs. If you're optimizing, wanting to know what the best choices are for you, how does your body work so that when you go to a conference like this and are buying things, or you go to the grocery store to buy your supplements, like, what do I actually need? You can self-serve. The reports will do that for you. If you want to dive deep into something clinical, build me a weight loss program, I have this hair problem, whatever.
Specific.
We have teams that can work on those things.
Okay. And when you're talking about the things that you recommend to do and everything based on their output in these reports, how do you put the validity together with what really works? Because we're still kind of in the new age of biohacking and everything, and some things may work better than others, and some things may just be complete BS.
Yeah.
Do you guys work with partners and stuff to recommend certain brands or certain practices?
Yeah, there's stuff there's 3 buckets. So one is environment, which is not you really buying things, it's more you eliminating things, right? For example, it may be that you bought a mattress that has fire retardants on it, that you're breathing for 8 hours at a time, that you can't detoxify, right? That may be the thing that caused your eczema, for example, right? Yeah. So it's like eliminating stuff. Second is nutrition, which does include supplementation, which does include food, anything that you're ingesting. So that's a big area where, to answer your question, we'll get into that.
Okay.
And the third is lifestyle. So lifestyle is, again, you're not adding stuff. It's more like, how do I exercise? How do I sleep? How do I deal with people?
Habits,
right? So the big one where we have to recommend stuff is that nutrition piece, right? Where it's like, well, what's the right supplement for this? What's the right ingredient even for a specific problem? So we look at things from the genetic expression level. So when you can't sleep at night, we don't say, here's some melatonin, go sleep.
Yeah.
We say, genetically, it's not just I can't sleep, it's I can't fall asleep, I can't stay asleep, I sleep through the night, but I wake up not rested. Genetically, those are 3 different things. So the solution is also different. So we tie the solution to what we think needs to be expressed better genetically. And so often the solutions aren't what the conventional connection is to that problem, right? It's eczema, here's some skin stuff. No, it's more like, here's some detoxification stuff, or here's some cleaning product recommendations. Here's some organic cleaners that you should go buy, right? So we're looking at the root cause, and so the solutions are also root cause.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about the fitness and nutrition side and the different products people are taking, how did you guys collect all that data in your clinical study was it a lot of trial and error, like correlation, like, oh, this person can't sleep well at night, they can't fall asleep, let's try this one or something? Or was there like data to fall back on and say, this shows something?
I think our job was really linking it. So on both sides, the data existed.
Okay.
We know what genes do. That's been going on for decades, right? We know what products work. I can show up here and I'm going to find great stuff, right? We didn't know how to match the problem to the solution.
I see.
So now, going back to sleep as an example, how do we go away from, here's some melatonin, right? Melatonin, yes, puts you to sleep, but it doesn't keep you asleep. Serotonin is the hormone that wakes you up. So just like, so an ancestral trait is that our ancestors used to see the amber glow of fire every night, right? And that amber glow is what would trigger the binding of melatonin. And our eyes are still waiting for that. Some of us have better circadian rhythms, don't need it. Some of us still struggle falling asleep because we're not getting that right stimulus. And in fact, we're getting the opposite. We're getting blue light, right? So just like that, the wake-up trigger was sunlight coming in, and it creates this kind of peachy glow through your eyelid. That triggers serotonin binding, which is supposed to wake you up.
Right.
Some of us are serotonin dysregulated, which means that our brain doesn't know what stimulus to react to. So it doesn't know to wait for the sunlight. It can't prioritize and wait. So it's responding to everything. Too hot, too cold, hubby pulled on the blanket, and you're awake. And this is, a lot of people resonate with this. I fall asleep, but then I kind of wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and it's not the same after that.
Yeah.
Right? That because a lot of us are serotonin dysregulated. So that's where we say we know the genetics. Serotonin dysregulation causes you to not be able to prioritize stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
We now know the problem, sleep. So we're like, that's why people can't stay asleep. Because they're not prioritizing all that stimulus at night. So we had to think about how to apply it in the context. Then we say, okay, now we know that's the real problem. What's the solution that solves the serotonin issue, not the sleep issue? And there's things like 5-HTP that will regulate your serotonin, common supplement. But there's also that sleep cocoon. You also have to deal with no stimulus, no light leakage, no sound, separate blanket, right? And ideal temperature. So we got to attack it at all fronts. So you have everything dealt with, right? So that's how kind of we think of it. Serotonin, 5-HTT-LPR is a gene. Everybody already knew what it did. Nobody thought about it in the context of sleep, right? So we had to rethink how to solve the actual problem, what's really driving it, and then what's the right solution.
Right, you're combining all these different elements and making it an actual practical thing they can try.
Yeah.
So in a way, you're like the middleman between the gene side and
and that's why we clinically faced people, right? So the reason we know all this is because we spend time with 7,000 people for months at a time, right? To learn what all works and doesn't work, and so that's the gap that was missing. It's exactly that. It's bridging it all.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You identified a need in a way that no one knew it was a need. And it's like, all right, here, let's take what we know on the genome side and let's take what we know about the treatment and let's combine it and make it an actual correlative thing that's going to be progressive for people.
Yeah,
that's great. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the future of the company and everything, where you guys see your direction going and what types of things people can be excited about coming up in the pipeline.
So we don't see ourselves as a testing company per se, more an interpretation company. We know what it means. Anybody can go copy our test, and you can go buy a sequencing machine and put it in your basement and start testing tomorrow, right? Testing is not the thing, it's what does it mean, the interpretation.
Right.
So because that sort of insight machine is there for us, we believe, as opposed to genetic testing companies that take your data and sell it, that's really what the industry is. Why don't we take the data and mine it and create insights to make everything better? Meaning, let's go work with that fertility company and help them do a better job. Let's go work with the personal training industry and help them actually personally train, right? So our intention is to be that, call it Intel Inside chip that powers personalization for everybody.
Consultancy in a way.
Yeah. And we just want everyone that's in the health and wellness business that's truly trying to help people, not this sick care business of go do whatever you want, and when you break yourself, I'll give you a pill.
Treat
right?
the symptom,
Right? Yeah. So anyone that's in our space, we want to help them do a better job. So everything we learned, all what we know, and yes, we continue to sell testing, but all of that is for the purpose of how do we help everybody else do better, right? And that's what we're now starting to do this year. Let's partner with people and build things together.
I love that. So why don't we tell people, to kind of wrap it up here, what's the best way people can get started and learn more about you and the company and where they can start learning more about themselves? It's
thednacompany.com, and the test is called the 360. You'll also see things about supplements and coaching and things on there, right? Okay. If you, on that same website, you can go link to our podcast where you're going to learn a lot. So we built the podcast for our clients. Like, you have your DNA in hand. Now let's find different ways that you can use it. Let's apply it to different problems. So we have a weekly podcast that teaches them more about their health and wellness.
That's neat.
Yeah, and you can also attend Ask Me Anything call if you'd like. So you'll see when you go to the website, you can sign up and you can have your DNA hand and attend this live call where we go through things and so that's what I would say. Go to the website, look up the test. I actually have my report on the website. So if you want to see what the report looks like, just scroll down 2 or 3 screens and you'll see this link, like see a report, and it's actually my report. You can click through, see how it all works.
Great. So they can learn the real you, meet the real you.
I'm exposed, man. I'm out there.
Yeah. Oh, cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure everyone's thrilled and excited from all the information we took away here today. So it's been a pleasure, and we're looking forward to talking with you again at the next Congress and next conferences in the future. So,
all right.
Always appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
all right.
You too.
Everyone take care. Signing off from the Biohacking Congress.